Hello, minions of the internet. I'm False Prophet, and tonight I would like to discuss something that's very near and dear to my heart. Fear. Now, no, I'm not talking about how to induce fear in others. We'll get to that some other time, I'm sure. No, what I'm talking about is how to overcome your own fear. Methods of helping you to fight the fears that keep you back every day. And of course, when I'm talking about fear, it's pretty clear here. I'm not actually talking about big, scary men with chainsaw hands, or falling off the 18th story of a skyscraper, or, sharktopus, spiders. No, what I'm actually talking about are more day-to-day mundane fears. The kind of fear that keeps you back, that holds you back from doing what you want to do. Go ahead and be afraid of the giant shark and the spider. Those are cool. Actually, those are kind of cool. Okay, so what are some methods for actually overcoming those kinds of mundane fears that we all experience on a day-to-day basis so that we can move forward and improve our lives? Because, honestly, fear has a tendency to really hold us back a lot. And to really understand this, you have to understand why we're so scared of things all the time. Why fear has a way of holding us back. Because it turns out your mind really wants to keep you safe. That's what it's designed to do. However, the catch is it's not really designed to make you happy. That's your job. Your mind is designed to keep you away from things that are going to hurt you or cause you harm, and that includes things that it interprets as being potentially threatening, including things like social situations or taking risks that you know logically are not going to actually really physically harm you, but are just, your brain still interprets that as a threat, as something that you have to avoid because it's going to cause some emotional damage if you fail. And let's be honest, fear of failure is a huge thing that keeps people from doing a lot of things that they want to do. So, how do you combat this? How do you get through these fears? Well, one first step is to change the way you're moving. That's right. You see, your physiology, the way you move your body, has a huge impact on the way you feel. So one thing you can do to kind of get yourself out of fear is to change how you're moving. Get up and move. Get up and exercise. Take power poses. Do one of these. Woo! That kind of thing. Why does that work? Well, because it can boost different chemicals in your brain and causes you to interpret things different. If you're really moving, if you're really determined and really moving with a lot of energy, striking really powerful poses, you just feel like you can just do anything. You can bust through any obstacle there, and that's a really powerful feeling to have. Another thing to remember about the way you move is that fear and excitement have very similar physiological effects. What I mean by that is that rapid breathing, heart rate, shallow, quick breathing there, nervous energy can be interpreted as excitement or fear. So a nice little trick is to, if you're showing signs of fear, oh my gosh, I'm shaking, I'm scared, I'm nervous, tell yourself it's excitement. It actually works because they are almost identical in the way your body perceives them, the way your body moves, that rapid heartbeat, shallow, quick breaths, shaky excitement there. Just tell yourself that you are excited and not nervous or scared. And this is a really handy trick for certain scenarios, like, for instance, public speaking. That's a good one. And you can use it for any other thing, too. Anything that you really want to do that you know is going to scare you and that's nerve-wracking. You can use that, and that's a nice little trick for your physiology there. Another really cool, handy thing is to just jump in and do it. Let's say if you have to go in and talk to somebody. If you have to talk to somebody, maybe it's your boss, maybe you're trying to ask someone out, it could be a lot of things. One of the easiest ways to fight fear is don't give yourself time to think about it. Just do it. I've heard people refer to this as the 5-second rule or the 3-second rule, but however many seconds you want, don't give yourself time to start to worry about whatever you're afraid of and talk yourself out of it. The moment you see that person that you want to talk to there, just go in and do it and worry about the consequences later. Dive right in. It's what I kind of think of as the, swimming pool effect. You just jump in the water. You know it's going to be cold. You know it's going to be, it's going to be kind of uncomfortable. Do it anyway. And that way you don't have time to really consider that you're scared. And that's a really handy way to go about that. Now, doing things in a physical way definitely helps, but that's not always the only way to deal with fear. It's not even really the best necessarily. What really comes down to here, what fear really involves, is the stories that we tell ourselves in our own minds. So if you want to really change what you're afraid of, something that's really scares you, you have to convince yourself that you're not afraid. Now, the good news is that you're the only one you have to convince. If you believe you're courageous, if you believe you're not scared, then guess what? You're not. It really is all psychological. But as we know, that's also easier said than done. So how do we handle that? How do we convince our own mind that we're not scared? Well, one cool way to do it is to basically change what you're focusing on. You see, when we're afraid of something, we tend to focus on all the bad stuff that could potentially happen if things go completely awry, all the cataclysmic, terrible, awful, fiendish things that could occur if we go through this thing that we're scared of and stuff doesn't go exactly the way we want it to. But if you change your focus to thinking about how things could go great, that'll give you a lot of courage there. You can think about, hey, this could be awesome, because if you're scared of something but you still want to do it, then there's obviously a reason that you still want to do it. You obviously think there could be some benefit. You have some kind of motivation there. So it pays to just go ahead and think about why you actually want to do this. Why do you want to do this thing that scares you? And what could be the benefit? How can this help you? How can this make your life better? Or just, do what needs to be done in some cases. Focus on the positive outcome. That's a really wonderful way to do things. Of course, another way that many people have found works to approach this dilemma about how to cope with fear is to actually focus on the worst thing that is likely to happen. You see, our minds, because they're so eager to try to protect us, have a tendency to overreact to things. We think things are going to be worse than they actually will be. In most cases, if you really look at the way life works, in most of the time, the worst case scenario, the thing you're really afraid of, usually doesn't come to pass. So what you have to do is ask yourself, what's the worst thing that's likely to happen? How bad is this really going to be? Now, if you're experimenting with that doomsday device, maybe that could be literally the end of the world. But in most cases, if you're just, worried about a project, worried about trying a new hobby, a new career, trying something different, chances are, even if you fail, it won't be that bad. And you also have to define failure, too, of course, because if you keep trying, in many of those cases, it won't actually be a failure. It'll just be a temporary setback, which is another way to think about it. In fact, that brings us to another method, which is reframing the idea of failure or what could happen. If you're afraid of failure, define what failure really is. And then say, well, wait a second, can I really fail at this? Do I only really fail if I give up? Or am I a failure if I don't try? Interesting point. Now, one other really great way to psychologically cope with a fear you're having of something you need to do is to be prepared. That's right, because preparation really takes a lot of the guesswork out of things. The more you can be prepared, the more you rehearse, the more you psych yourself up, the more knowledge and information you have, usually the less you have to be afraid of about something. I mean, okay, sometimes more knowledge in the Lovecraftian sense actually does create fear, but in a lot of cases when it comes to human interaction, or a lot of the kind of stuff we have to do on a day-to-day basis, things that you're not quite sure of, let's say like embarking on a new job or trying something new that you've never done before, talking to a new person, most of the time in those kinds of cases, preparation does pay off. Knowing what you're trying to do, what you're getting into, understanding things, really does help you overcome fear because it gives you a greater understanding, and fear of the unknown is one of mankind's really biggest fears there. It's something that scares the heck out of a lot of people. This is one of the reasons why people have a tendency to fear the future, because we don't know what's going to happen. So if you can overcome that, if you have a better grasp of what's going to happen, then it makes things a lot easier. So preparation can also be a great way to eliminate fear. Of course, ultimately, one of the best ways to really help yourself cope with fear is simply practice. That's right. Practice dealing with things that scare you. Do things that scare you. Push yourself a little bit more. And I know you're saying, well, wait, what? That's terrifying. Why would I want to do that? Because it makes you feel like you're accomplishing something. And for those of you who watched my happiness video, I'll go ahead and put a link to it somewhere around here, probably down there. The bottom, progress equals happiness. Progress is great. So if you want to overcome fear, get a little bit better at dealing with your fear. The more you push yourself, the more you realize, wow, I'm awesome. Look at that. I can do stuff. I know how to do stuff. And it slowly escalates. It snowballs. It becomes more of a powerful thing that you are capable of. You realize that you can do things that you couldn't, or that you didn't think you could do before. And that's a really amazing thing if you really think about it. You have the ability to progress. You have the ability to grow, to evolve, to improve. And it's a really amazing thing. So by pushing yourself more and more, by dealing with more and more unfamiliar situations, unfamiliar things that you don't know how to cope with, you slowly start to notice some patterns. You notice that these things that you used to be scared of were nothing. You'll wake up one day and you'll realize, holy heck, what the hell? I'm doing stuff that I never thought was possible before. Wow, and I'm, good at it. I mean, maybe I sucked, at first, but I'm good at it now because I kept doing it. I don't fear failure any longer. And that's a really, really amazing thing. And it becomes a cycle because you start to change the story you tell yourself about those things. You build confidence that way. And you can push it a little further, and it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle of success. And that's a really amazing thing. It's really incredible to know that you can just do this, and you can go and you can keep doing it, and you can keep improving incrementally, little by little, because that's kind of what life is about. In fact, if you think about it, you've actually been doing this your entire life in a way. There was a point in your life when you did not know how to do a lot of stuff that you know how to do now. You had to push yourself at a certain point. I guarantee it. If you're here watching this video and you even understand what I'm saying, I guarantee you had to push yourself at some point. Now, maybe you weren't completely terrified about that prospect because you didn't know any better. You were just curious. You were a kid. You wanted to do stuff. You can take that approach with things now. You haven't lost that. You may think you have, but you haven't. You can embrace things that scare you right now and really push yourself. And the more you do that, the more confidence you get, the more competence you get. And for those of you who are wondering, for those of you who see other people do things that are like, wow, how's that person do that? That's amazing. I don't know. I could never do that. No, you could. And I can pretty much guarantee you that the people you see doing those things have done the same thing too. They pushed themselves. They found a way to do it. They told themselves a different story. They increased their confidence. They learned. Now, maybe in some cases, those people had the advantage of learning at a very early age, so it wasn't as daunting as if you were doing it when you're older. But you can still do it. Maybe they learned early, but you can still do it now, no matter how old you are. There's no limit to this. Your brain has this wonderful ability to grow. It's very, very durable. Well, durable's not maybe the right word. It's adaptable. You can create new neural pathways, make new connections. You can have this wonderful feeling of, hey, I can do this. And I seriously recommend trying that. So in summation, one thing we have to remember is that fear really is a psychological thing. And although it is there to keep you safe, it is there to help protect you. A lot of times your brain can kind of abuse it a little bit, and it can start to get in the way. And when that happens, when you notice yourself being scared of something that you know will help you in the future, it really helps to push yourself a little bit. You also have to get leverage on yourself too. Think about what you're missing out on if you don't do this thing that scares you. Think about what'll happen if you don't push yourself, if you don't try to accomplish this thing that you want, this thing that's important to you. Think about how bad it will be, how bad it'll feel later when you don't try harder. Someone once said that there's only really two pains in life. There's the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. Discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs tons. Don't live with any regrets. Find a way to break through those things that you fear in order to get what you want. Find a way to have that. And it all starts with getting yourself into a really great physiology, telling yourself a wonderful story about why you want this, why you really don't have anything to be afraid of, why even if the worst should happen, it's probably not that bad, and what you'll lose if you don't do what's necessary. And then come up with a strategy for that. Decide what you need to do your homework, figure it out, be more informed than the next person so that you have less to fear, less of that fear of the unknown, and practice it. Keep it going. Keep pushing yourself and trying and growing a little by little. It doesn't happen overnight, though sometimes it can seem like an overnight process when you have a little breakthrough, like, wow, okay, I just did something I didn't know I could do before, and that's a great feeling. But you have to work on it as well. Little by little, every day, work on it and become a better version of you. Become a more efficient, more powerful, more villainous version of you. So I hope you've enjoyed this little discussion about how to accomplish what few people do accomplish, overcoming their fears and becoming a better version of themselves. There's so many things that people are afraid of today in this society, but you don't have to be one of them. You can be better than that. But it will take some work. That's the catch. And some dark work at that. Ooh. This is False Prophet saying, stay evil and good night. If you think that overcoming your fear is a lot of work, just try being terrifying all the time. Really exhausting.